is Chibu Sonye, and I am one of three co-chairs for the Coordinated Campaign Committee. I am so excited to see you all here at our annual national meeting, and thank you for taking your time to be with us. We have a super fun hour together, all right? We're gonna be talking about campaign stuff, for candidates and for staff, answering a lot of your questions. We want it to be engaging, so please feel free to utilize the chat and to converse and use all these reactions. We have some really awesome folks that we're going to be able to talk to today. And so I want to just give a small overall view of what we do. So here in the Coordinated Campaign Committee, on the national level, we support uh, local and state candidates, from your local school board to governor, all the way down ticket. We are here to support you through social media, support you through your first kind of steps, and we hope that you leave today deciding I can run for office. I can take that next step as a green. And hopefully, which we know will happen, you'll have questions. So this is a place for you to get some of that training, get some of those one-on-one questions kind of answered. So again, utilize the chat. And I spoke for a hot second, but I want to pass the mic to another awesome co-host who will be helping monitor the chat and ask questions to her panelists. Cool.
Okay, thank you. I am Michael Cooper. I'm in Indiana, not too far from Chibu, and I have run for office a few times on the local level. So I will be glad to, if people are interested in running the local level, to kind of share some chat with. And I'll be monitoring everything. And if you take time.
Okay. And so let's go ahead and bring up and introduce some of the folks who'll be answering our questions today. So we have Edie, Andy, and Butch. We're going to bring them up on stage and let them introduce themselves. See, Edie. Yes, Edie, go ahead.
Hello. Breaking the ice. Hi, my name is Edie Arndell. I live in Carbondale, Illinois. I joined the Green Party last year because of Jill. And I became an organizer and worked really closely with my co-host of the Green Livestream, Mr. Scott Free, who is now the co-chair of the party of Illinois Green Party. And he asked me to run for lieutenant governor, and I said yes. So that's me.
Hey, awesome. Okay, let's bring to the stage Andy.
Hey everybody, my name is Andy Ellis. I've been a Green since about 2015 when I saw Baltimore City rise up in response to the murder of Freddie Gray, and I saw the politicians have nothing to offer, but the people have everything to offer. And at that point, I knew that we needed a new alternative and one that was rooted in the people and not in the powerful and in the powerful and in the billionaires. So I've sort of had every hat that you can wear in the Green Party. I've been a co-chair at the state level, the local level, various committees. I've run for office, I've managed campaigns, and this year I'm running for governor of Maryland, seeking the Green Party nomination in 2026. And I'm also a member of this committee, and I'm excited to get to do this panel today.
Rock on. Hey, and obviously last but not least, we got Butch Ware out here.
Butch Ware was proud to run with Dr. Jill Stein on the presidential and vice presidential ticket in 2024. Proud member of this committee because I'm really committed to the idea of building a robust roster of candidates that are on the field to win, not just to play the game. And I'm running for governor in the state of California. Proudly accepted the California Green Party endorsement and looking forward to building the infrastructure to get us to at least second place in the June 2nd, 2026 primary. because after that, they won't be able to hide from the Green Party agenda. And we all know that this party has the best liberation platform across the board for working class people, for all kinds of marginalized communities, and that they're doing everything that they can to make sure that our agenda does not see the light of day. So really glad that people can join us in this gathering, and especially hoping that we can coax some of y'all into running for office the same way that Jill dragooned me into running for office 11 months ago.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. There is one more person who is not on stage with us, but she is our Andy and I's third half. Her name is Nancy, and she is the third co-chair for the Coordinated Campaign Committee. She'll be helping monitor the chat. So again, if you have particular questions or just want to give a good shout out, that's how you do it, and let us know. All right, y'all. The question I have, one of the first ones, is what made you decide to run for office? Was it first political? Was it personal? If there was one factor that really made you think, yes, I wanted to do it, but I'm going to do it, what was the one factor?
I'll go first. For me, for this race, the Maryland Green Party has always paid attention to the governor's race because it is a ballot access race. If we get 1% in the governor's race and then 1% in the presidential race, that allows us to get ballot access for all down ballot candidates. So in Maryland, that means no petitions for anybody else down ballot. So if I get 1% in the race in 2026, we will be able to run candidates in Baltimore City. We'll be able to run candidates for Congress, and all they will have to do is go to the Board of Elections, say, I want to run. So we've always paid attention to the race for that regard. But in 2022, our campaign for governor started in like August because our folks that decided to try to help looked and they saw that there was a good field and that it made sense to them. And they started a race in August and got like 0.75%. So I realized that if we were able to run a long, committed race that built the infrastructure of the Green Party along the way, we would be able to get that 1%. And I think it's a better way to get ballot access to talk to voters about the program and the policies of the Green Party than it is to ask them to sign a petition begging them to allow us to exist. So for this audience, that's sort of what I decided. There's some politics in Maryland that I'm sure we can get into later that necessitate having an option outside of the two-party system. But for me, it was pretty simple. It was functional. It was, we get 1% in this, and we enable down ballot candidates across the state in order to challenge the one-party system we have here.
Beautiful. Yes. Would anyone like to jump on and share their one why?
I'll give it
Go
a
ahead.
shot if it has to be one. So Gaza got me re-involved in politics. I used to be all about Medicare for All. I actually helped co-found the March for Medicare for All. Healthcare was my thing because I saw how much it affects people. But my very first protest was the Iraq War. So, and then just seeing what's happening there, you can't just sit by and not do anything, which is exactly what all of our representatives are doing. They're sitting by, collecting their paychecks and not doing anything. I said to myself, I'm like, that is not good enough. You know, you call and you get some flunky on the phone that takes a note. We never know if the person hears it or if they care. And I got to where I was so angry at them. It was so hard not to yell at the person on the phone. And just the lack of responsiveness to the public. So I'm like, well, you elect me, I'm going to listen. I'm going to do what you asked me to do if it's at all in my power. And even if it's not, I'm going to fight for it. So I guess that's it.
Very strong and very powerful. Go ahead, Butch.
Yeah, I'll answer with a dual answer. The first is why I responded to Jill's call, because I did an Instagram live with her about her platform, and 24 hours later, they offered me the chance to run as vice president in the last election. So I had a pretty serious decision to make at that point in time. Similar to Edie's sentiment, I just simply felt that any weapon that was being proffered to me that I might utilize in order to shield human beings from needless harm, especially but not exclusively in Gaza, that I would be guilty of a moral offense if I refused it. And in for a penny, in for a pound. You know, when I saw how we were able to run, when I saw that we were able to get 53% of the Muslim vote nationwide and actually turn a key demographic that had voted 2/3 Democrat for 60 years. And when I have to be honest, I'm a little thin skinned. So like the where's the Green Party between presidential elections gets under my skin, even when I know it's a disingenuous argument. And so part of the rationale for running for governor was, what are y'all gonna say now? What are y'all gonna say when we're competing at the highest level in the most populous and wealthiest state, the state that will set the pace and the example for all progressive politics in this midterm election? And I joined this particular race to follow Andy's lead and kind of, drilling down on why I chose this race, because we can win this race. The second place finisher in 2022 only got 17.7% of the vote out of 5.5 million votes cast in the primary, which was 1.29 million votes. If we can get to about 1.5 million votes in the state of California 10 months from now, then whoever that Democrat candidate that emerges out of that bloody battle that will definitely ensue inside that party now that Kamala has stepped down is going to have to deal with me on a debate stage between June and November. And that's the end of the duopoly.
Rock on. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Great answers. And I want to point out to the audience, the current candidates who are here, their whys are all very different. We have a historical situation. Gaza is a huge tipping point, and I think and a fine line for all of us here on the Green Party, and for your neighbors. Okay. And so that heart to heart is something that's very real, very tangible for local and state candidates. Larger issues still impact the state. We have a strategy. If we can get 1% on a governor's race, in Illinois it's 5%, we can get ballot line access for 4 years, for 8 years, for 10 years. That happened in Texas. One person stepping up can lead to so many amazing, a huge snowball, which leads to local candidates, your school boards getting only 50 signatures or 10, rather than what it currently is, which could be literally thousands and top of hundreds of thousands of dollars to even get on the ballot for some of these smaller places. And then you have a larger vision and strategy here, right? So I want to continue thinking your whys can be different, but they all lead us back to running for office. Okay. How did you go about planning your campaign? What was a first step that you took? Would someone like to start?
I started last time, so I'll
Some
go.
ideas could be, how did you think about your team? How do you think about a plan? How do you think about goal setting? Go ahead,
I was
Edie.
just going to say I'm still starting, so I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, I think I started with first is the decision to run, and then working with my state party and the people that I've grown to know and love very deeply. What do I do next? I got my bank account and my EIN number and so much paper, like Butch said, in for a penny, in for a pound. I said I would, and that's the kind of person I am. If I say I'll do something, I'll do it. Can't for whatever reason, I will.
I love state and local chapters. Definitely a great first step. Any other folks? What was one of the first few things that helped get to planning?
Case, it was really at the staff that I wanted to put together, and the relationships that I wanted to cement across the state. Those were kind of the two first steps. What I learned through a lifetime of organizing and activist work and managing grants is that if you pay careful attention to the casting, right, you choose the right people, and then you articulate a clear but capacious vision so that people can find themselves in it, then people will populate. So I wanted to make sure that I paid careful attention to who I was casting in the roles of campaign manager, volunteer coordinator, our comms team, and so forth. And then I wanted to make sure that I was consistent with messaging and targeting the disaffected communities throughout the state, and then just showing up, getting out on the road, and communicating, especially in in-person gatherings, because social media can do a certain amount, media can do a certain amount, but there's no substitute for building that those face-to-face relationships. And that's also why I started the campaign early. That probably the first decision was to start the campaign early so that we would have time to build that infrastructure, because we have to be honest, is that the Green Party has not always done that. We have not always gone out and done the work of showing up, especially in marginalized communities. And I think that if we're going to win elections going forward, we need to be present. So yeah.
Absolutely, to both of those things. And I mean, for me, I started the day after election day in 2022. So 2022 election came around. Wes Moore, who, like many of us here, has been potentially running for president. I think it's interesting that all of us are running in races where there are potential Democratic presidential nominees coming out of our state. I think that's an important thing to point out here. But Wes Moore won his election in 2022 by 35 points. It was such a blowaway against the MAGA Republican that the local public radio station was calling the race while ballots were still open, because there was no chance that it was going to be any different than that. And so I filed the next day, and I spent the next 2 years in sort of an exploratory phase, making sure that this was going to make sense, putting together a theory of change, talking to people about it, understanding what issues that we wanted to have, what goals we wanted to have. And as Butch said, traveling across the state. We went from Appalachian, Maryland to the Eastern Shore, from Baltimore to Bowie. We went everywhere we could, talking to as many people as we could. And what we found was that people are frustrated with the two-party system, regardless of what their political orientation is. And so I think one of the most important things for me in those 2 years was understanding that the appeal here is not just to the typical folks that vote for the Green Party, but to all of the people who want a system that is better than the one that we have right now. So that happened. While that 2 years was occurring, the genocide in Gaza started, and that drastically changed the orientation that we had to this race, because it went from talking about publicly subsidized baseball and talking about some of the important things that were happening in Maryland to talking about war and genocide and apartheid, and the necessity that we had to build an alternative to that, because we could look around and see that the Democrats were beholden to the billionaires, the corporations in Israel. And when we saw that, we realized that it was having trickle-down effects in Maryland too. So for 2 years, we sort of planned and planned and planned. And then this January, we officially launched in Annapolis, right outside the governor's mansion, to make sure he knew we were coming, and to make sure that he cannot avoid it. And since then, we've put together a pretty ambitious plan. We've identified several really important goals. The first one is to be the first campaign outside of the two-party system in Maryland that qualifies for public financing. If we can do that, we could get a $700,000 or $800,000 cash infusion in August of 2026. And you talk about building Green Party infrastructure, it happens when you can get that kind of cash. Then we are talking about also trying to get Maryland Public Television to allow us on the debate stage, so that we can make sure that Marylanders can hear the multiple choices that they have, and that they don't think that there's only two choices. We're working on several angles to do that right now. We want to run as many Green Party candidates down the ballot as we can. And we've gone from aiming for 1% because of the planning that we've done to aiming for 100,000 votes, which would be the best third-party performance for a governor in Maryland since the Civil War. And we think the time and the moment is poised for it, and we're going to do our best to go after it.
Yes, I love all of these answers, and I appreciate them. Thinking about what you can accomplish help not only mark your path and build strength in yourself and confidence in your campaign, because you have particularly set goals. I also want to think about something that someone else shared, which was, like Andy said it and Butch said too, we're going up and down the entire state. your campaign on a state and local level focuses on the state. And so you want to make sure that you're talking to as many people as possible. The difference, one of the many, many, many differences between us and the duopoly and the folks in duopoly is that we actually make a point to talk to everyone. If you're independent, maybe you're libertarian, we still want you to come to our town halls. And so keep that in mind, that you are someone who will speak to all of your neighbors, not just the ones that like you. I want to make a point also in thinking so candidate people have already said that they're running, like they've already announced for their community, and we love that. If you don't currently have a campaign manager, think about a good friend of yours who probably will be outside of work because it's a campaign, who you talk to and who you get good advice from and who they know you a little bit. A campaign manager, a lot of people in Greens don't take one because they're like, well, I can do it all by myself. You can't. A campaign manager is someone that you can share your in-depth feelings with, have an unfinished thought with. And as a candidate, that's something that can be scary. Well, I don't have a finished idea, but I still want to move forward with something. An external processor for you. Your campaign can also have a treasurer, so someone who helps fundraise for you. And that is also a way of transparency. It shouldn't only be you if you can help it on your bank accounts. It would be helpful to have at least one other person. Go to your local chapter and your state chapter to see if there is a treasurer there who can train, again, a friend of yours on some of their strategies, which will help your campaign as well. So it's called a core four. You need yourself. You want a campaign manager, someone to talk with and help develop. You want a treasurer to help you fundraise. And then if you're like Butch and you're awesome, you want to have a volunteer manager as well. That's someone who really just takes on all the free, wonderful labor that's going to help you out. And so if you can have you want like 3 other friends to help you on this journey with you. And so we have candidates who may not have that, and I want you all to start trying to get that by the end of the month. There you go. Yes, queens. Okay, queens and kings, all of us. Moving on, is there what identity do you what did your identity for which identity, if any, did you think about as you started your campaign? Social identities can have a lot of weight, and where you come from can matter and does matter because it influences who you are. How was working through your own social identity as you began your planning stages?
I'll take this one on. So I am a white middle-class male, white middle-aged, I guess I have to add now, middle-class male. And I am running against the only Black governor in America, the first Black governor in Maryland, an Indian American lieutenant governor, and a Democratic Party that has the largest legislative Black caucus in the country and one of the largest Black populations in the country. So I obviously could not ignore that. And so what I have taken on to ground myself in that is making sure that I am accountable to Black folks and Latino folks and Asian folks and queer folks and all sorts of folks that I have worked with over years of organizing who have problems with the current governor, even if they were excited to see a Black governor get elected. And they have policy problems, and they have delivery problems, and they have politics problems. And so we have made sure that we are grounding ourselves in people who are doing work in community every day, people who are not, observing from afar, but are there doing the work, building the institutions and building the organizations. And we make sure that we're accountable to those folks. So if I say something on Edie's podcast that somebody has a problem with, I expect to get a call and be told like, hey, you shouldn't have said it that way. Let's talk about what was wrong about it. And that has happened. And that's not just happened through the campaign. That has happened through the entire time I've been working through the Green Party, because most of Baltimore is about a 65% Black city. And the district that I ran in 2018 was about an 85% Black district. And so like folks have problems with the Democratic Party that has mostly Black folks in it at this point. But they want to make sure the white folks are coming correct and basing themselves in organizing traditions and organizing history and talking to the right people and can talk about who it is that trained us and can talk about how we got there. So, you know, I'm very clear about who I am. I don't pretend to be anything else. And I'm going to make sure that when I'm on stage, on the debate stage with the governor, that I'm talking about my disagreements with him on policy, my disagreements with him on what he's delivering on, and the way that his politics and his rhetoric don't match what he promised people when he got elected in 2022. And you know, there's going to be folks for whom that is not good enough, and there's going to be folks for whom they're like, yeah, sorry, that's not how I vote in 2025, and that's fine. It's totally appreciable. I can totally appreciate that and accept it. But I'm going to make sure that I keep grounding myself and working directly with people who are serving the communities that I am talking about bringing justice for.
Andy, rock on. Yes.
I'll go next. I think that the critical demographic that I've really taken on after kind of going through this first 4 months of building the campaign, because we announced on February 1st, is the Latino population in the state of California. A lot of people don't realize that the largest minority group in California are whites, because Latino voters are 40% of the electorate, and white voters are 34%, Asian American 12%, African American 6%. So wanting to make sure that we have messaging that and that we're showing up in community for especially for our Mexican American brothers and sisters. Obviously, you know, my stance on abolishing ICE and shielding every California resident from any kind of unconstitutional kidnappings is crucial in that regard. But I felt like this was one of the things that we could have and should have done better in the 2024 presidential campaign, was our messaging to the Latino community. And so it's something that I've tried to center in our engagements throughout the state. We can only show up as who we are, right? But when we show up as who we are in our own authentic selves, myself as, you know, a Black Muslim, we empower others to show up as their authentic selves as well. And when we do that in a way that is like listening and hearing and compassionate, then we really can bridge a lot of identity divides. The last thing that I'll just say about that is that if you get down to the bottom of my website, one of the things that it says is solidarity beyond ideology and identity. I'm not expecting everyone to think like I think, believe the way that I believe, but we're trying to focus policy on serving the people of the state. And I think that a lot of different people have been responding to that, keeping things focused on housing, healthcare, and education, and away from war, incarceration, and deportation, right? That those are messages that everybody is responding to, because across all of these identity divides, universal healthcare is a 70-30 issue for American people, right? You know, housing first, like everybody gets to eat before anybody gets seconds, except for housing. Like, that's extremely popular across the electorate. But figuring out the ways of delivering the messages that are of most direct relevance to affected communities, that is always like crucial. That's what allowed us to turn the Muslim community in the 2024 election. And if we can have that same kind of targeted messaging for subgroups within the electorate inside the state, then we'll do well with those groups as well.
That leaves me, but you're a hard act to follow, but I can't say I disagree with anything you said. So I see myself, you know, I'm a white working class, you know, heterosexual woman. I used to be a truck driver for a major company. I delivered chips all day. So I got to know lots of, I did it in, for the most part, in San Diego, California. originally from Indiana. So I started there, moved out to the coast for a while. So I got to know all different kinds of people. And when I retired from that job, I moved to Carbondale, Illinois. And, after you get settled and you start looking around, this is an amazing community. And but they all seem like they don't talk to each other. So I have engaged with so many different communities, and I'm working on trying to bring them all into the same room. I show up as myself. I'm an activist at heart. I'm also an artist. I like to do oil paintings. And I speak my mind, but I also listen a lot because there's so much to learn from every community that you are engaged with. So that's about as far on the journey as I am. We are planning an event for International Peace Day in Carbondale, Illinois. Working on what that's going to look like. Don't even have a name yet, but I want like the local DSA and the Carbondale United, which is Nancy Maxwell's group, that she more or less represents the Black community in my town, which is on the northeast side, which of course they ignore and historically has been marginalized. I want everyone to talk to each other, and I've been heavily involved with the Palestinian community here, and they've been wonderful. Plus, I go to the Unitarian Church, and that's a whole different demographic. I'm trying to get them engaged and get them to come and meet the people that I'm so concerned with. I did convince 3 people on Sunday to come to our protest because in the Unitarian Fellowship, they have this thing called Sorrows and Joys. On a whim, I got up in front of 50 people and poured my heart out about Gaza. Never said the word Gaza, never said the word Palestinian, but everyone knew what I was talking about. And I invited them to come to the protest. And some did. So just trying to put everyone together in the same room. And then I'll listen.
Yes, amazing. Running for office is running as you are for the betterment of your community and the people around you. And so I want you all to keep that in mind, that you don't have to change yourself magically to be someone different. And majority of us, all of us, are working class people, and your experience matters, and that does weigh into to your run and running and feeling confident and comfortable running in your skin. So rock on, y'all. I want to shift gears a little bit and go into some of the resources and some of the tools that you all have used and are using currently in your campaigns. So is there one platform that you like or realize have been helpful, whether it could be there's a lot of different kinds of platforms that you can use on a campaign, but was there one particular like maybe like a website or a or something, or another thing that was helpful in building up your campaign? And so another way to phrase that question is, what is one strategy that you use to engage your base and then reach beyond it? It's a better way to say it. Yes.
I'll just say this is my first time running. I don't know the answer to that yet. So
True. Okay. Well, one website outside of your like state and local parties is the Coordinated Campaign Committee. We have a hub called Groups.io for current candidates, so people who have said I am running and I'm going to go ahead and do it. If you're still considering running, come talk to us as well. But if you've said I'm going to run, we have a platform called Groups.io for you. Are there other platforms or websites or things that you use to engage your base and to engage your campaign?
So we have a lot of tools. So I've been blessed with the fact that so I started doing online educational activities in the Muslim community in 2020 after the George Floyd murder. And 2 of the people that took my online intensives actually do digital work and digital branding. So what I would encourage is that anybody that's interested in this, send an email to digital@butchwareforgov.com, and we will set up an appointment for you. One of my former students from those online intensives, she built out our website, got us a Mighty Networks platform, which means that we have basically our own closed social media networking space that now has 3,000 people in that space. Meta doesn't have eyes on it. Elon Musk doesn't have eyes on it, and we're able to do all of our building in a secure, private space without having to use Discord. That's been extremely helpful. And then the last one that I'll just mention also is Zephy. Zephy's allowed us to do fundraising without taking a cut off of the top of the fundraising. So between Zephy, Mighty Networks, and our digital direct one, Beehive. Beehive has been really when we first, the comms team that had kind of used traditional nation builder platform and was sending out emails that way, Beehive has proven to be much more like elastic, flexible, and something that can deliver content in a lot of ways that are appealing and basically click interface. Beehive, Mighty Networks, and Zephy as three kind of platforms that if you're interested in learning more about, connect with my team, and we'll be happy to set up a Zoom.
I think has a set of tools that you can get for $10 that allow you to have access to vote contact tools that might be otherwise. They have a good community that of what their politics are, community, and a good set of tools. One thing I would say is sink a bunch of money so that you can walk around that is on your phone. You do not. Obama in the 2008 campaign and has followed this strategy as if it were. I do not think that type of thing the Green Party campaign, and we have been using Action Builder Network, and Action Builder takes a starts with the individual connections, network out from there. That, to me, is the way to call everybody on our phone and say, are you going to vote for me? Are you going to volunteer for me? Are you going to donate for me? And sometimes those big several $100 a month tools that will win your campaign for you discourage that type of thing, because they load a universe worth of voters into an application, and then it becomes a game of how many of them you can contact. Newsflash, the rules that Democrats use, even progressive Democrats use to win primaries, are different than the rules that Greens have to use in order to challenge existing power systems. And so those tools that are built for that are not necessarily going to work for us. So I love talking about tools. I could nerd out with Butch and Edie and Chibu about this for hours and hours. My job in the past has been working with tools and technology for a big corporation to find the things that we can use to replace the new things. So that's the last thing I'll say here is don't become wedded to any particular tool that is run by any particular corporation, and make sure that if your data is stored somewhere, you can always get it out and put it in a new tool. We are working on a progression that says start with a corporate tool, move to an independent tool, and then if we can, build our own tools. Right. And so it's like, don't let the lack of knowing how to use one of the independent tools slow you down from getting your campaign started. If you need to start your website on Squarespace, go ahead, start your website on Squarespace, but have an eye to move to something that you have more control of over time. And then if you have the people on your team, like Butch does, to develop your own stuff, because those are things that will live on beyond these campaigns and allow other folks to use these organizing methods. And, you know, I don't think any of us are going to get rich off of the tools that we make in our own campaigns, but that's not the purpose. The purpose is to enable other Greens, other progressives, other independents, and other folks trying to challenge the billionaire-run two-party system to have the tools that they need free from the corporate control.
Big facts. Yes. Okay. I loved all parts of that. One thing I really do want to highlight is I also use, as a former candidate for 2024, I did also use Good Party. And I think for local candidates, do consider using its current. I had it when it was free, which I appreciate, but it is $10. That is something where a recurring donation from a family friend of $12 or $15 can cover some of those expenses. But yes, Good Party is a tool that focuses or utilizes AI. And I would like to point out that AI, you can have all the different kind of thoughts, feelings, and how you choose to utilize it or not utilize it. If you're someone who is interested in AI, I do recommend trying your best to. Good Party uses Meta AI. Valid. Thank you for someone put in some details in the chat. So go look at that. Good Party uses Meta AI to be specific. Fair. But if you're someone who has an interest in AI or utilizes it in your life now, you can use AI in your campaign without being a cheater and without not writing any of your own stuff. I just want to say that right now. Don't let it scare you. And if you have a thought block, utilizing an AI prompt and giving them some answers and then fleshing it out on your own can actually be very helpful. If you don't currently have a campaign manager and you're still working out the kinks with one of your new friends and volunteers who will step up off the plate, do consider utilizing it as a way to externally process what you want to do next. It is helpful in that way. So it's a tool and you can be great. Awesome. Thinking about fundraising, which is essentially asking people to believe in you and asking people for money. How did you start breaking out of, I guess, being afraid? I know I was afraid at one point to ask my close friends and then also to ask strangers. So there's two. How did you approach fundraising? And you can think about it as what worked and maybe what didn't work.
I'm going to go last because I have a lot to say about this. So I'm gonna hold on.
I'll go first.
Speak.
I'll go first here. So I don't know that people who are afraid of calling people and asking for money ever stop being afraid of calling people and asking for money. They just get better at it, right? And so I think no, anytime a candidate says, I don't like calling and asking people for money, anybody else who is in the asking for money game and business will tell you, well, nobody does. So the question is, how do you get yourself to do this thing that we have to do in American campaigns? Because if we want to reach voters and break through the two-party control of the media narrative, we have to have resources. So, I think the first step is always make a list of the people who you're close to, call them and ask them for money. Set an amount when you're doing that ahead of time that you're going to ask for. I mean, you got to do your homework on this, right? Like, I shouldn't just give Edie a call and be like, hey, Edie, I want to talk to you about my campaign, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And oh, by the way, do you have some money you can give me, right? I got to be like, I want to, when I go into that call, I got to be like, Edie, I want $10 a month as a recurring donation. And the call has to sort of work toward that goal. That being said, I think there's a lot of different creative ways that we can do things that are different than just sending out email blasts. If you have a very big email list, that's great, right? You can use that as a means of getting some revenue coming in and some regular donations. But, for us, we started doing different things. You can see all these posters that we have behind us. Instead of spending a bunch of money on lawn signs, we're spending money on posters like this and then selling them to supporters. We're also making stickers. We're also making buttons. We're also making T-shirts that have political slogans on them instead of just my campaign logo or something like that. Because while there are certainly people who will buy a T-shirt with a campaign logo, more people want a T-shirt that says, reparations now than they do Andy Ellis for governor. and they might buy both of them. But we're making sure that the messaging and that the politics are part of the fundraising. And then I think that's the other point that I would make here is be very clear that third parties have to engage in this fundraising game, and that they have to do it in a way that is competitive because the system is structured in a way that forces us to do so. So it is like, don't hide from the narrative. Don't hide from the fact that we have to raise funds in order to break through the two-party control of the system. Be very clear that that is part of what it's going to take. It can't just take voting. It can't just take protesting. It can't just take posting on social media. It's got to take the kind of fundraising that forces the media to pay attention, that allows you to reach voters and breaks through the control that the corporations, the billionaires, and the two parties have over the system.
Wow. I'm over here frantically scribbling notes. Yeah, well, tell me the question again, because that just kind of got me way sidetracked.
True. Okay. Well, we can share, we can listen to what Butch said that he had a whole lot, and I want to hear it because fundraising it can be difficult and can be hard, and but you all have to do it. We all have to do it. And if you're not a candidate, you even need to do it more because that way your candidate can be doing candidate stuff and not only call time, which is the candidate talking and getting voters on purpose.
Leftists have money issues. A lot of y'all act like poverty virtue. The saying, he said, if poverty was a man, I would have slain him. The aim is to end poverty, not to make it into a virtue. And in order to end poverty, in order to actually have redistributive systems, when we against Kamala and Jill Stein campaign, that campaign had been functioning for 10 months and had raised $1 million. And just for when I joined the campaign, ended up raising. There is no
a difference maker when you're talking about a big race between raising the awareness, given choices, and changing outcomes. And if we want to change outcomes, get our people we have to invest in that, and I think this issue is so important. I think this is a thing that we should actually do a CCC fall that speaks to the ways people do this and the needs
podcast, the election, and made the case for as the tip of the spear, a broader third party movement. We had, I think it was 150 people new sign up as donors that day. So getting out and getting your name circulating in different media environments and being explicit, that you're calling people into action when you engage those media environments, it's absolutely crucial. And this is the last part about this is you have to be tireless in this part of it. Is that like, I mean, I've got a special needs son. You can hear him running above me, one floor above right now, stomping through the floor. Have to hire an aide so that I can get some of these things done. But I'm doing between 10 and 15 media or in-person events a week, despite the fact that I have a full-time job and a special needs son. So like, there really is no room for sleep when it comes to getting our name out into the media ecosystem, because the entire media ecosystem is designed to make sure that no one ever hears from us.
Real. Other people, when it comes to how did you cultivate a relationship with the media?
I'll go next. So a couple things here. First of all, what Chibu just said, I think is really important. Relationships with media are very important. If you have media people, no matter whether they're a podcaster, a blogger, or a reporter at a major newspaper, develop those relationships. And develop those relationships not just when you need something, but when you can help them do their job and you can help them write stories, right? So Baltimore City is a one-party town. And for years and years, political reporters after the June primary have been like, well, what are we going to talk about? So the Green Party has been there for a decade, ready to give them stories that are interesting because we understand what people want to read about. And so we will have ways of highlighting candidates, ways of highlighting protests and things that allows the politics reporter who's sitting there being like, well, I don't want to cover the Republican who's going to get 3%. To have a new and interesting story. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is in that building of relationships, one thing that we have found that is really useful is to identify places where it is a government meeting and they're going to kick the media out in order to go into closed session very early into the meeting. So if you go to a government meeting and it is only usually media there, and then they kick everybody out in order to do business in private, then you're in a conference room or in a hallway with the media for 2 hours, and you can make common cause with them about why it is that they're being kicked out of the room and you're being kicked out of the room, and you can pitch a story. We did this in 2023 when the governor was signing a new lease with the billionaire owners of the Orioles to give them $600 million of $600 million of taxpayer money. We went to a meeting where we knew they were going to kick the media out. Then we sat there in the hallway with the media and pitched a story about public ownership of the Orioles, public ownership of baseball teams, and public ownerships of sports, and why we shouldn't be subsidizing the billionaires with taxpayer money. That changed the direction of the reporting that came out that day, subtly, because we got to be on the news saying we shouldn't be using taxpayer money to subsidize elections and things like that. The other thing I will say is sometimes the people who you might consider your enemy when you're not running for office might be your friend when you are running for office. So the Baltimore Sun was recently bought by the owner of Sinclair Media, and he is a right-wing person who is against the Moore administration and against the Democrats in Maryland. When he found out, or when the newspaper found out that I was taking a stance that was more aggressive in favor of reparations than Wes Moore was, and Wes Moore was about to veto the reparations bill, they sent a reporter to do a story on me, and it was a great interview. It was not an interview that said, here's an interesting, flavor of life story where a Green Party candidate was running. It was a story that the Baltimore Sun was using to try to split progressive voters and Black voters who were upset about the reparations veto away from Governor Moore. And fine, I may not subscribe to that newspaper because of who the owner is, but if they want to send a reporter to say that I am for an end to U.S. support in Israel, I'm for reparations now, and I'm against ICE doing any raids in Maryland, I'm more than happy to let them report that, even if they are reporting it so that their comment section and their readers think that I'm terrible. Some of the folks that are going to read it are going to understand that there's a candidate that stands with their values at that point. So, do everything you can to reach out to folks. It doesn't matter if they're podcasters, bloggers, major media folks, or the Breakfast Club. Do what you can to get the media opportunities that you can and build the connections over time, be strategic about it, and understand that the goal is to get coverage, not to make friends or not to appear in the places that you think you'd most like to cover you.
Sweet. Yes. Edie, is there anything else that you wanted to add? Otherwise, I'm gonna move forward. Okay, so I do see a hand being raised by former village mayor Dedon. So yeah, go ahead and give us. So we'll bring you onto stage so everyone can see you, and then you'll be able to answer your question or make your statement. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Chabot. In 2016, I was the upstate New York media coordinator for Howie Hawkins when he ran for New York governor. I guess there are two big things I did. One was I sent out press releases, but even more important than that, I sent out, oh God, I forget what the term is, but specific releases to the media throughout New York, especially in the cities where he was going to be appearing. And it was like a who, what, where, when, why type of release. And I'm really upset. I can't find any examples right now. But what I would do, I would send them out the day before. If it was a really big event, I would then send it out again the next morning. And then I would call the newsrooms for all those local media outlets, introduce myself, and ask them, did you get the release? If not, where can I send it to you? Are you planning on sending a reporter? And if they would say no, I would say, can I help you arrange a one-on-one interview with Howie, either in person or on the phone? And I got tremendous feedback from people. New York City was a wash, Buffalo was a wash, but we got great reaction from everywhere else within the state. And then the other thing I did, and God, I can't remember, I would set up phone calls. Today we would do Zoom calls specifically aimed at local media. Nobody else would be invited. And they were a big success. I also did that for the Montana Green Party when they were trying to fight the Democrats who were forcing them off the ballot. So again, I'm just throwing my 2 cents out from the work that I did that I found successful. And towards the end of Howie's campaign, I had a couple of reporters call and say, hey, look, we have stuff for Cuomo, we have stuff for Astorino. We need something from Hawkins to provide a balanced report. So the reporters can truly be your friends, regardless of who they are. Over and out.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So some things. One, this is David, who is our GPUS web manager. So thank you, David. Okay, being great. Yes. Someone said SC Greg from the steering committee said that it's called a media availability. So that's something. Awesome. Okay. I actually really like these. A lot of our notes will be compiled and put into our groups IO on the coordinated committee platform. So that way you all can see these and give examples. So it won't just be, oh, here's what it is. It's an example of what it looks like and here's how it can work. So I love this. I love all of these things. We have about 10 minutes left. So I want to move into some pieces of advice and things and some lessons learned from our candidates, our current candidates, which is amazing because that's like these are 3 potential governors / lieutenant governor. Like that's like the president of a whole state. That's a whole big thing, and you all are doing this. So I absolutely appreciate you. What is in like a minute? What is maybe one thing that you wish you had known when you had started? And then we can give a leg up to all the future candidates so they don't have to start from where you started.
I don't have an answer for that because this is my first time. So
answer for that builds off of that you have to have a first time, right? Like there has to be a first time, you've got to do it and you've got to start. You may not win the first race you run. Very few people who aren't chosen by the Democratic or Republican establishment win the first race that they run. And so you need to get started. You need to, if you think you will be a good candidate and you ask some other people and they agree with you, if ChatGPT is the only thing that agrees that you would be a good candidate, that might not be right. But if other people agree that you would be a good candidate, then go for it. Give it a try and be willing to learn and be willing to revise and refine what you do each time. I'm going to go back and watch this video, see how I answered the questions here. And I'm going to do them again. I'm going to answer those questions again, and I'm going to answer them again, and I'm going to answer them again, because question answering, especially if you don't get to give big speeches, is the way that people learn about who you are. They learn about it on a podcast, they learn about it at a town hall, they learn about it at a community meeting. So don't start somewhere and always practice and always get better. It is a process of getting better and getting better. And by the time that it's election day, we're all going to sound way better than we do today, because we've been doing it so much. Butch is doing 15 events a week. Edie's doing a podcast every week. We're talking to people all the time. And there has to be a commitment to start somewhere and constantly get better and constantly improve and constantly practice, and be willing to look and say, I'd give myself a B+ on that answer. How do I get to an A?
Sorry to use the academic term for it, but the epistemic humility in Andy and Edie's answers is why I know I'm in the right room. That's the difference between pretending like you know it all and understanding that every single experience is a learning opportunity. Edie, when you said earlier, I don't know the answer to that question, I was thinking about a story from the Islamic tradition where one of the most revered scholars in the early tradition, Imam Malik, was asked 26 different questions, and he responded to all but 9 of them by saying, La adri, I do not know. And when he was asked what kind of scholar says, I don't know, to more than half the questions that they're asked, and his response was to say, all knowledge begins with I do not know. And in that same vein, like all growth begins with like a clear-eyed assessment of our shortcomings, the blind spots in our vision, and our willingness to like take the lessons from the campaign to heart each day, right? There were a lot of things that I thought that we did well in the 2024 campaign. And for somebody who had never run for office to have 11 weeks to learn how to do that, I feel like in an overall sense, I held up pretty well. But there were a lot of things that I wish that I had done better. And I've tried to take stock of all of the places where I've fallen short and could do better. Because in the end, this is service. Like this is service work. And if our egos and unwillingness to learn, through the process stands in the way of our growth, then we are inhibiting humanity's prospects of collective liberation. So that epistemic humility of being able to say, I could have done that better. Let me run that. Let me run that back. Let me try to answer that again. Let me listen all the way to the end of the question instead of starting to formulate my response halfway through, right? All of those little pieces that we can get better at along the trail. And in the end, that's where the experiential learning and the muscle memory starts to kick in. It becomes easier and easier the more that you do it. And then you take that growth into new domains because you've sort of mastered a core set of skills. So yeah, staying in that space of growth and taking a lesson from every encounter.
Just want to thank you for that because I'm learning it's not embarrassing to say you don't know something, but that's just your opportunity to learn. So,
and it's not even bad for getting votes. right? Like a candidate who is willing to say, I don't know the answer to a question, and then go think about it and then come back and talk to the person about it afterwards is a much more authentic interaction, I think, than a person who will make up a BS answer, right? And voters see it.
100%. And that authenticity and integrity is what it comes down to. One of my first teachers in West Africa, he said, "Nyako hamdara dugache." Lack of knowing something is not a source of shame. Lack of wanting to know something is a source of shame. Right? If you're unwilling to learn about the thing, then you should be ashamed of yourself. If you don't know a thing, there's no shame in that.
Agreed. All right. So with the last few minutes left, I want to say thank you so very much for everyone that came in here and shared. We have 3 amazing candidates, a lieutenant governor and 2 people running for governor for their states. I wanted to share one of the last questions that I wanted to ask, but was like, if there was a piece of advice that you could give to someone who's thinking about running but hasn't committed yet, what could that be? And along with that, if there's one piece of advice that you'd give to someone considering running, you can also share if there's any like email or blast or where people can find you and to continue following you. I want to give you all a time to do that. So a piece of advice, if any, and then where can people see you and continue to support you in your great work?
I'll start with the advice. Make sure that you are ready to do this. The task that we have in front of us is momentous. If we are to save the world from the genociders, the apartheidists, and the billionaires who want to dominate it for their own personal control, they are not going to stand by lightly while we come at them. And if we're really going to come at them, they're going to come at you. And so make sure that you're ready, that your family's ready, that your job is ready, and that the things that you need to depend on can still function without this, because it's going to get hard. If we are going to get close to winning and changing this system, it's going to be hard, it's going to hurt, and it's going to be painful for you and the people around you. So make sure you're ready for that. That's not a reason to not do it, but that's a reason to make sure that you go in and incredibly clear-eyed that the challenge we have before us of changing these outcomes is important, and it is the thing that can save us from the pathway that we're on right now. The people who are making profit from the pathway that we are on right now are not going to take kindly to that. This isn't meant to discourage anybody, but it is meant to make sure that, like, you don't walk in thinking this is going to be fun and nobody's going to pay attention to you, and then you take that first punch in the mouth and not know what to do about it. You got to be ready, you got to be willing, and you got to understand that this is real. We're playing with life or death of the majority of the people of the planet here. And if we are right, and I think we are, then the people who are profiting from this system are gonna come back hard. You can follow me at Andy at gogreen2026.com, or the link tree is gogreen2026. All the links are up on there. And that's the best way to keep in touch, and I'll put it in the chat.
I'll give it a shot. So I would say jumping in and doing something about how you feel about the world feels better than sitting on your sofa and doom scrolling. It is a reason to get involved, whether you are the candidate or you are the volunteer or you donate to the campaign or you tell people about it. Because doing nothing now in this day and age is not an option. And you can find me if you want to watch the Green live stream. It's on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, not X. And my website's coming soon. It will be Edie for Illinois. So I wanted Butch to go last. That's why I went.
I was waiting you out, Edie, because I heard you say before you didn't want to follow me, so I was waiting you out regardless. And the Green live stream was fantastic to do. I look forward to doing the show again. I'm gonna say I think 3 things. The first is a kind of practical, tangible piece of advice. Engage with the activists and organizers that are already doing the work in respective communities and show up in service to them. the duopoly shows up to instrumentalize the people's energy. They want to show up and say, this is an issue that you're concerned with. This is my platform. Vote for me. And we have an incredible opportunity to instead put the third largest political party in the United States of America at the service of the people who are doing the liberation work on the ground. So alongside that epistemic humility about which we just spoke a moment ago, showing up in a spirit of service to community, because that's what allowed the Muslim community to come over. They saw us showing up in service on the most important and fundamental issue to that community. And if we're able to do that on a consistent basis, then we are going to be able to recruit well beyond our numbers, right? Because the networks that are already engaged on the ground will come alive when that happens. The second is the goal of a revolutionary political party, and I think that the Green Revolution is ready, is to help channel the people's energy from mobilization around issues into organization against systems as much as possible. Get people that are mobilizing around siloed issues together and draw for them the picture of how what they're fighting against with ICE abolition or with Palestinian liberation or with the carceral state are all part of a single whole, and that without taking down the whole, then there is no success that's possible on the specific issue. And then the last part that I would just say is that the Green Party does not have politicians. One of my mentors and teachers, Annie Young, the first Green Party elected official in the state of Minnesota, she served from 1989 to 2018. When she passed away, God rest her soul, she's my godmother. She taught me that there's no politicians in the Green Party, only public servants. And that if we can continue to draw this distinction that we're here for the people, not here for ourselves, the way that teams blue and red are, then I think that we've got a tremendous opportunity to score big gains. You can find me at butchwareforgov.com. I put the link in the chat. And if you think that I was playing about every single donation counting, like, we need to hire field coordinators right now for Santa Ana and for Orange County and for Sacramento. Freedom ain't free, y'all. So pony up.
Yes, thank you for being with us and helping us cultivate our public service. I hope you all have a great rest of your annual National Committee and go forth and prosper. All of you lovely kids.